Good morning, everybody. It's Tracy on another episode of What Has Changed Your Life. I have changed locations today, and you can hear the boat going by right as we go live. Isn't that awesome? We're
So
just going to
awesome.
wait 1 second before I know. I am up north and enjoying this beautiful day, and I hope that you are too. Today, we are going to talk to Jill about her journey with Crohn's disease, which is an anti-inflammatory disease and it affects your bowels. Jill, thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of What Has Changed Your Life. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm glad you're here. Now, Crohn's disease, how old were you when you were diagnosed with Crohn's disease?
I believe I was 22 by the time I was diagnosed. But I'm pretty sure I've had it quite a while before that, before I, was diagnosed.
So tell me about your symptoms that you had before you were officially diagnosed.
Yeah. So before I was diagnosed, it was, frequent trips to the bathroom, which I know cannot be fun to talk about. But what I'll say is, it happened gradually. And of course, I was like a teenager. And so nobody wants to talk about that kind of stuff. So honestly, I thought that's what I sort of thought that's what happened to everybody.
So you thought that was normal?
Yes. Yep.
So for people that don't know, when you have Crohn's disease and your bowel flares up, in Crohn's disease in particular, the flare-ups can happen anywhere in the large bowel or the small bowel. It can be anywhere.
Yep.
And some people get mixed up between Crohn's and colitis. So colitis is also it's an ulcerative type of inflammatory disease as well, and it occurs mostly in your sigmoid colon, whereas Crohn's disease can happen anywhere. So I just want to let people know the difference between those two. The other thing too, when we're talking about frequent bathroom movements, is we're talking about poop, everyone.
Yep.
We were talking about poo. So your poo is not formed. It's generally very loose. And you have to go to the bathroom multiple times a day, anywhere from 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day.
Yes.
Is that fair, Jill?
Yes. Yes. When you're in a flare up, that can absolutely be true. And it can actually even be anywhere in your digestive tract. So really it can be from your mouth to, out the other end. So I just wanted to say that because I would also get sores in my mouth that I thought were like normal, but no, that's not normal either.
No. And the other thing too is that people need to realize is when you have Crohn's disease and colitis, when you have to go to the bathroom, it's not a matter of waiting. You need to go to the bathroom toot sweet. And one of the things that I know, my husband has colitis, so I'm very familiar with these things. And so one of the things is wherever we go somewhere, and I don't know if you have this experience too, Jill, but we need to know along on our trip, where are the bathroom stops and how far away they are. And also you have to time your meals sometimes around your trip and where you are in relation to a bathroom. Is that something that you experience as well?
Yes. Currently, I am totally in remission. And actually, I like to even think of myself as that I've healed it. I don't like to identify that I even have Crohn's anymore. Doctors would say that's not possible. So currently I'm not in that position, but I remember being in that position. Even before I was diagnosed, I'd go out with, I was like in my teens and in my early 20s and, you'd go out with friends and, that would be the first thing I would be thinking about is where's the bathroom? Yeah.
And it causes a source of anxiety when you're not sure where the next bathroom is going to be. And that may sound trivial to some people, but it's a real fear.
Yes, because you don't you don't want to have, you know, an accident. And so it is. I used to have anxiety about, like, if I didn't know the plan and I didn't know where we were going or we went somewhere new. Yes, that is absolutely true.
Yes. Now, when did you finally decide that this was not normal and this is not the way your life was supposed to be, and you went to a physician to get help?
Yeah, so basically it was people around me started noticing. I had a full-time job at that point, and I worked in an office setting. And this is going to sound weird to some people, but it was such a gradual thing. I just didn't realize. But anyways, in my role there, sometimes my stomach would hurt so much that I would need to like lay on the floor. So if you think about that, like now I think, wow, that's just crazy. Why would you even be at work if your stomach hurt that bad? But I just wasn't aware really. And so people were like, what are you doing? I mean, we're in like cubicle office settings. And so people around me started to be like, that's not a normal thing. And so that's essentially what it took, was people to point out that that's not normal. That then I was like, okay, yeah. I need to be seen.
So what was one of the first things that they did in terms of testing for you to figure out that this is what you had?
Yeah, so actually I just first went to my regular, general practitioner, and honestly, I was sort of stuck in this like situation where they kept telling me, I don't know what it is, but I know it's not Crohn's, and they didn't refer me on. So I would go like once a week, basically. And each week they would just say, try this medicine, and each week it would be a different one because nothing was working. So they really didn't even they did blood work, but they didn't do like any other testing. And finally, I think my mom was like, you've got to get into a gastroenterologist. And so I then just booked with my gastroenterologist. So I feel like I didn't get the best care from my general practitioner, but my mom, was like, go see a gastroenterologist because they're a specialist in this area. And I went to see them. And as soon as I went to see them, they were immediately like, we need to do a colonoscopy. Yeah. And, from that, we should be able to know. And so did the colonoscopy, and then just coming out of it, he was like, I'm pretty sure it's Crohn's disease just based on what I see. But of course we'll do they took biopsies and did labs on the biopsies to confirm it. So he knew like right away, basically.
By looking at it, he could see it.
Yep.
Yeah. So for anyone watching, a colonoscopy is where they take a flexible scope and, did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Oh, good. I went black for a second. So I just want to make sure everybody can still see us. Okay. So you're still there, Jill? Because you're a bit frozen on my end.
I am here.
Perfect. Okay. So what a colonoscopy is, it's a flexible scope, and you have to do a prep. It's usually a 48-hour prep ahead of time that you have to take. Each gastroenterologist does the prep differently. So I won't even mention what the preps are because everybody does it the way that they feel is best. Basically, the idea is to clean out your whole entire colon so that it's nice and squeaky clean, so that they can put the scope into your rectum. It goes all the way through your colon, your large colon, and they can see what the lining of your colon looks like. So it's only a scope to go into your large colon, not your small colon. Okay, so that's what they do, and they have a look, and then they take an instrument, which is like a little grabber. It looks like this kind of thing, and they take those biopsies from your large colon, and that's how they figure out whether or not you have Crohn's disease. So just a little bit of background on how that all happens. Was that your experience, Jill?
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Perfect. So how long did it take for you to get your results of your biopsy back?
I don't remember, but I think it was within a couple days. So it was pretty,
Yeah.
because I really felt like once I got in touch with the gastroenterologist, then things moved quickly. They were able to get me on some medicine and, help start treating it.
And how quickly, once you were on the anti-inflammatory medication, how long was it before you started feeling better?
This was a while ago now, so I don't remember exactly, but I remember it, it took a little while because I had been sick for quite a while. So there's quite a bit of inflammation that needed to be brought down. And so if I had to guess, I was feeling like significantly better probably in like 3 months.
Nice. That's a nice feeling. Oh, going by again.
Nice.
This is the only spot, I'm afraid, I actually have reception, which is why I'm sitting here.
Oh, I think we lost her. Hopefully she comes back.
I went away there for a second. Sorry, my reception's a bit patchy. So after you
Looks
went on
like she's coming back.
Oh, can you see me now?
Oh, you're back.
Yay!
Wait, I can't hear you though.
You can't hear me at all? Nothing?
I can't hear you, unfortunately.
Okay, let me try that. Did that work? Can you hear me now?
No.
Can you hear me now, Jill?
I can't hear you.
You still can't hear me? Still can't hear me? Okay. One sec. How is it now? Can you hear me now?
No, I can't hear you.
Okay. That's weird. Okay. Um, all right, we'll see if Jill comes back. I'm just waiting to see if Jill comes back. So today we are talking about Crohn's disease and diagnosis. We were just going through the process of diagnosis of Crohn's disease, and my mic stopped working. And I'm hoping it's working now. I don't know. I can't tell. So we're just going to I'm hoping we can to continue this conversation. And I hope you guys are having a great day. So let's see if we can get Jill back into the studio and continue this conversation about Crohn's disease. So basically the idea is when patients are diagnosed with Crohn's or colitis, after their biopsy, then they go on medication, as Jill said, and if you're watching, can you tell me if you can hear me? Because we were having issues with my mic before. So in the comments, if you wouldn't mind, just letting me know if you can hear me. And if you can't hear me, then I'm gonna know because you won't comment. So we were just talking about Crohn's and colitis, and we were just going into treatment options. So basically what they have to do when they give you medication for treating those diseases is you have to basically take something to calm that inflammatory response down so that your bowel has a chance to heal. Some people are able to decrease their symptoms of Crohn's and colitis, and other people live with it for the flare-ups every once in a while, forever and their entire life. So I'm hoping to get Jill back and we can continue this conversation about Crohn's and colitis. So let's see if we can get her back. In the meantime, tell me about your Sunday. Tell me how your Sunday is. I'd love to know. Tell me what you're up to. We'll see if Jill can come back. I am enjoying the day up at the cottage. We are cleaning out my dad's place, so we are up here doing that now as we speak. And I'm just seeing if we can get Jill back. So a couple of ways. Sometimes when people have incredible flare-ups with their Crohn's, they do require surgery. And basically, they need to have that part of the bowel removed. So we call that a bowel resection. And depending on where it is in the bowel, it can be, right side, left side. It could be anywhere in your large colon that we would be able to have to take, and part of the small colon as well. And one of the things too, when people are getting diagnosed with Crohn's and colitis, is their fluid and electrolytes become imbalanced, and they actually can get pretty sick before their initial diagnosis, because it takes a while for the testing to go and for them to get their colonoscopy and everything else in order for them to get that diagnosis. So a lot of the times at the beginning, it takes months and months and months for people to get diagnosed properly. So, I think we have Jill back now.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay!
We got it to work.
Yay! Fantastic. I was just talking about how while I was waiting for you to come back in, I was just talking about how sometimes at the initial diagnosis, a lot of people, because of the fact that you're going to the bathroom so often, that your fluid and electrolytes become imbalanced. And so people can be very sick and lose a lot of weight at the beginning before they're actually diagnosed, because it takes a little bit of time, as in your case, to be diagnosed, because of the fact that you were young and people were at the first dismissing you and saying, no, 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 you don't have Crohn's. And so you actually can get very sick at the beginning before you're actually diagnosed.
Yes.
So I was just filling people in.
Great.
So after your diagnosis, you go on the medication. It takes about a few months for you to everything kind of settles down. And now you were saying that you, at the beginning of this, that you were actually you're pretty much cured, I want to say.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, cured. So I want to know, how did you do that? Because a lot of people that have Crohn's disease, it's a lifelong issue.
Yeah. So, well, I'll just tell you this. So about 6 years ago, my daughter started to get sick. And of course, as a mom, I feel like one of the most stressful things you can have is when your kid gets sick. But just the way she was acting, the way she was holding her stomach, she would like lay on the couch, sort of similar to how I was sitting on the floor at my office. Anyways, because of my experience, I was like, no, we need to get into a gastroenterologist, and even her physician wanted to push it off. So I just tell you this because this is like part of my healing journey. So anyways, that was extremely stressful. She got diagnosed with Crohn's, but it happened much faster than it happened for me because I could advocate for her, and I knew at that point what was normal and what wasn't normal. And so I was able to get her diagnosed fairly quickly, but they needed to put her on medicine. And, still I was working full time and trying not to take any time off, even though she had a lot of doctor's appointments, and try to make up my time in the evenings. And it was a very stressful event. And what happened was that stress put me into a Crohn's flare. I was managing my Crohn's, okay, but the stress of all of that landed me in the hospital because the inflammation perforated my colon. And so I wound up in the hospital. Luckily, I didn't need surgery. A lot of people do. So I was like pretty fortunate that I didn't need surgery to my colon regeneration happen. But it was a week-long hospital stay. I couldn't eat anything. My body just needed time to heal. So, of course, I was on a ton of antibiotics because I was septic because of the preparation. So it was a week of being in the hospital, and at a time when like my daughter needed me the most. So it was just really eye-opening that so I learned a lot from that. So that hospital stay sort of really changed my life because it helped me realize a lot of things. So I think stress plays a huge role in how your body, reacts to things. And I know that the stress is what brought on the flare. So one of the big things I really focus on now is stress management. I really try to not let things bother me. And I have like a variety of strategies I do to help me with that. So anyways, when I got out of the hospital, I was on antibiotics for quite a long time. They almost put in a PICC line, but last minute decided not to because of course, I was begging to go home. I just wanted to be home. Anybody that's been hospitalized, you feel that way. But especially, I wanted to be there for my daughter, who was just starting new meds and all of that to try to get her Crohn's under control. So I was on antibiotics for like 3 months after that hospital stay to just try to get everything back under control. I was on steroids to get things under control. My daughter was also on steroids, so there can be a lot of side effects that happen with that. So anyways, once I got things it took several months, but I got things sort of back under control, but never really great. and the doctors put me on a medicine and then another medicine to try to, make it better. And then I started getting some side effects. And one of the side effects was like my body was literally like stiffening up. And basically it was a side effect from the medicine I'm on about like high levels of uric acid. And so I said, well, my doctor said, okay, well, I can give you medicine that'll help with the uric acid so you don't have that. So it was like a medicine stacked on top of another medicine to combat the side effects. And I was like, there's got to be another way.
Yeah.
So I actually went
it's like compounding, right? You've got one problem, and because you're taking that medicine, it's creating a whole different problem. So now you got to take medicine for that problem.
Yeah, and I was like,
another problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of felt like, where's that going to stop?
Yes.
And so I went to a chiropractor who focuses on I guess he's like a naturopath that focuses on that. And I just thought it's worth a shot. So I kept taking my medicine the doctor gave me, but I went to the naturopath to see what he said. And he said that I needed to change my diet pretty drastically. So because I was coming from a place of being pretty sick, I had a lot of motivation to do it because I wanted to be there for my daughter.
Yeah.
I needed to be as a mom. I knew I needed to take care of myself. So he said, no grains, no sugar, no dairy. And
did you went dairy-free, gluten-free?
Dairy-free, grain-free. So that means gluten-free, but more, like no rice, no grains whatsoever. Okay. So dairy-free, gluten-free, and sugar-free. So basically what was left was...
Yeah, I was just going to ask that question. So what you eating besides grass?
Yeah, so meat and vegetables. I could have some fruit, but he wanted me to watch that because there is sugar in fruit. So
occurring sugars, exactly, yes.
Yeah. So at first it was really hard because I was like, what am I going to eat? But then what I realized is this is easier because basically what I decided I liked pretty much was a salad with some meat on it. Yep. And so that's pretty much all that I ate. I would have eggs because I wanted something for breakfast. So I would have eggs for breakfast. But I couldn't use dairy, so I didn't have butter. So I was using primarily coconut oil, but sometimes I use olive oil too. So that I just switched my diet. At first it was a little tricky, but then it was like, this is almost easier because I don't have to think about what I'm going to eat. It almost
meat, veg.
Yeah,
that's it.
This is simple. I know exactly what I'm going to eat. I don't have to think about what am I going to eat because honestly, all those decisions can be very stressful.
Yes.
So,
yes, one of the things, so myself and my kids are gluten-free, and that's because we have a disorder called celiac disease, and so it was interesting because, as I mentioned earlier, my husband has colitis. So we had this was years and years ago. And when my kids were diagnosed, they were like little, they were like 3 or 4. And then I was diagnosed. So we were eating gluten-free. So my husband became a part of that just by the fact that I wasn't going to make myself and the kids a meal and then make him a separate one. Right.
Right.
So basically we did, everybody ate gluten-free. So probably about a year after he went gluten-free, he had to have a test again because, as you know, you have to get frequently tested. So colonoscopy time comes and he goes for his colonoscopy. And the doctor comes out and she says to him, "What have you been doing?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" Like, we got nervous. We're like, "What do you mean? What have you been doing?" And she's like, "If I didn't know where the ulcerations were in your sigmoid colon, I would not know that you had colitis. So I want to know what it is that you're doing differently than our last scope, not that long ago. What is it you're doing differently?" And it was the gluten-free. And his bowel basically healed enough that she could not tell where it was that he ulcerated. And she said that he was able, like he had been off medication for a while at that point. She's like, you don't even need to look at that anymore. And so I know there's some people out there that are like, really, can food make that big of a difference? Yes, it can.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so glad that helped.
Yeah, so when you're telling this story, I'm like, I can totally relate. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's a bunch of mumbo jumbo. It is not.
No, it's definitely not.
So after you started eating the vegetables and the meat and everything else, how long has it been since you've been on that diet?
Well, so I'm actually not 100% on that diet anymore. I do have a diet that I have things in moderation. So I do have dairy occasionally. I do have sugar occasionally, and I do have grains occasionally, but rare. So I did that, and I was starting to see improvements. And my sister had started talking about intermittent fasting, and I was like, I asked my naturopath doctor, my chiropractor, I said, what do you think about intermittent fasting? He was like, oh, if you can do that, that'd be fabulous. He's like, I eat once a day and I feel great. And honestly, he's like upper 70s and he looks so young. I mean, he probably looks like, if I had to guess, I would have guessed probably like 60. So anyways, then I got into doing intermittent fasting. And then I went from like, it was okay. I was like managing my Crohn's, but I still had some symptoms to like, I felt amazing. And I've been doing that now for probably about 2.5 years, intermittent fasting. And it just gives my body time to heal every day. I'm flexible with intermittent fasting too, but when I do it gives my body time to really heal. And then, so now I am able to occasionally eat, like, if we go to a party that has somebody's birthday party, I might have a little piece of cake. I don't have to be so strict anymore, but I'm not eating those things all the time. Mostly follow my diet.
Makes a difference.
Yeah.
Makes a difference. Right?
It does make a difference. But the intermittent fasting has allowed my body to heal enough that, I can be more flexible with, the things I want to do. If I want to go have ice cream, I can go have some ice cream and I take mine afterwards. But if I did it, daily, it would not be good. So, and the other thing I really found with, I said stress was what brought this on. If I had to, I would say, 90% of it is probably more about stress management. And the other 10% is my diet, the intermittent fasting and the foods that I'm eating. And I've also found that the intermittent fasting is almost a form of like a meditation of quieting my mind because I'm not constantly thinking about food. I mean, before all of this, I was the kind of person that would wake up and my first thought would be, what am I going to eat? What am I going to have? How is that going to make me feel? And, you talked about anxiety. I used to have anxiety about what food I would eat and how would it make me feel. And my brain was constantly like churning through those kinds of thoughts. And so I really feel the intermittent fasting sort of clears my mind because it's just like food is off the table during I do eat every day. It's not that I don't, but, it's just that all those thoughts about what am I going to eat and how's it going to make me feel are just gone. And so that helps with my stress. I feel.
Yes. I have to say a bunch of people at my workplace, they do intermittent fasting as well. So for people that don't know, basically, and you can correct me, Jill, if I'm wrong, but there's basically like a 14 to 16 hour window where you're not eating. Obviously, you're drinking fluids like water and that, which is really important to keep hydrated. But
Mhm.
then there's that other time frame. Usually people are saying at work that they eat within an 8 hour window. Usually most of them are 12 to 8 p.m. Some of them are 11 to 7. It just whatever works for their schedule. And
Yep.
so they eat within that time and then they don't eat for the other 14 to 16 hours. So that's kind of a quick overview of what intermittent fasting is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can, one of the things I like about intermittent fasting is you can be really flexible with it. So you can start to see benefits of intermittent fasting, even if you do a 12-hour fast. So say you stop eating at 7 o'clock at night and you don't eat again until 7 in the morning. There's even benefits with that.
Mhm.
But, in the society that we live in, so many people, well, we have food so readily available to us that,
Yeah.
a lot of people have a snack at 10 p.m. when they're, and then they get up and maybe they don't eat, but maybe they have cream in their coffee or a sweetener in their coffee or something like that, which breaks your fast. And so you don't even have to do the 8 hour eating window. You don't even have to be that extreme. You could just be as simple as skip the nighttime snack, and you can still get some benefits from intermittent fasting. So anywhere from like 12 hours to, I think a common one is just like you described, where you eat 8 hours and you fast the rest. So that's 16 hours fasting. I sometimes fast 20 hours. Sometimes I will stretch it and do like a 23. So I'm eating once a day kind of a fast, but I don't do that every single day. So, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of science behind it and your body starts reacting. But I love it because I always like to think about like back before we had all of this commercialized food everywhere. I think they had to go hunt and gather their food. And so they didn't have food. There might be days where they didn't have food. So I think it's a little bit more natural of how humans are really supposed to be. I'm no doctor,
Yeah.
but that's how I think about it.
Yeah. I always look at the food in this way, and I tell my clients this as well. If it looks and, when you're reading the ingredients and there's more chemicals in there than there are nutrients, I call that a Twinkie. So, and then on the other end of the spectrum, we have what would Farmer Jane put on her table, right? Fresh vegetables, meat, you know, fresh fruits, those types of things. So when I say to my clients, when you're looking at your meal, are you looking at it? Does it look like a Twinkie? Or are you moving towards Farmer Jane? And the goal is to move them away from that Twinkie, high fat, high processed foods over to home cooked meals, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. Does it look like a real thing as opposed to a processed pretend thing? And
Right.
so it's really important to give your body the best nutrients. And if you can look at a label of something and you can't read what the ingredients are, or you can read it, but they're really big words with a million different letters in it, that might be something that you should pause and say, that's kind of more like a Twinkie and not so much like Farmer Jane.
Right, right.
So put that back on the shelf and go over to Farmer Jane. And even if it's something as simple as peanut butter, I love peanut butter. You will never get me to not eat peanut butter. I love it, love it, love it. But one thing I do differently is when I look at a company of peanut butter, I won't name company names because that's not right, but I look at the ingredients and then I go to the natural peanut butter. And the only word on my jar of peanut butter is peanuts.
Yep.
That's it. There is nothing else in there. There's no sugar. There's no fancy words. It's just peanuts. Literally, that's what the label even says, just peanuts. And
Yep.
that's what you want to go to. So it
Yes.
doesn't People get upset about that. It's just changing the way you look at it.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm the same. Like peanut butter, I get just peanuts is the only ingredient on my peanut butter. So I'm right there with you. And honestly, the other thing I do is when I go into the grocery store, 95% of the food comes from the outside of the grocery store. So the meat department, the fruit and vegetable department, most of the time I don't even go down the aisles. I do get my peanut butter that is down one of those aisles, but you want to look for the right one. But most of what I get is, whole food, fruits, vegetables, and all of that.
And it doesn't, like some people are like, oh, it tastes so bad. No, listen, that's what the spice aisle's for. Get your spices and just play with them. Play with the flavors. Something so basic can really turn into something really good.
Yes, like my salads I was telling you, at first, if I look back, 6 years ago and someone said, primarily what you're going to eat is salad with meat on it, I would have been like, no. But I have found some different salads that I love. So play with it, figure out the vegetables you like. And, I've found some decent dressings I like. I do put seasoning on it. So I'm not using, because you got to watch your dressings. A lot of dressings have a lot of yucky ingredients in them. But everything bagel seasoning is one of the things that I've found that I like, and it just adds so much flavor. And I put that on my salad with some oil and vinegar. So good. Tuna. I'll put tuna on my salad, hard-boiled eggs. So I love salad. I love it. And I would have never said that before, but I feel so good, and it tastes really good once you find the combo that you like.
Yes. Yeah, you can have a really good salad, and it's flavorful, it's tasty, and you feel satiated when you eat it.
Yes.
And if you add that protein to it, that's the real key to making you feel full. Protein in terms of meat, or it can be beans. It can be anything like that to give you that feeling of fullness.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Now I'm hungry. I need lunch.
I am still fasting, and so I'm still on my fast. So I'm going to probably fast a little while longer.
Nice. Well, I have not tried intermittent fasting yet. Maybe one day I will try it. The problem for me is in my job that I do, when I get scrubbed in a case in the operating room, sometimes I'm there for 4 hours. Sometimes I'm there for 8 hours. So it's really hard to go into a scrub and not know what time you're leaving it, because anything can happen in a cardiac case. So that's where I struggle with the intermittent fasting, because that makes me nervous, because I don't want to be hypoglycemic in the middle of a case. Right? So I'm like, so I always say to my coworkers, how do you do this? Because I can't seem to do this. But anyway, I'll work it out at some point, because I would like to try it, because I'm hearing a lot of good things from my some of the physicians that I work with and things like that about the intermittent fasting. So, there are definitely benefits for sure. I just haven't had myself. I have not been able to do it yet. So it's something I'll work on.
Yeah. And you don't have to, of course, the more you do something, the better, but you can get some benefit from fasting, even if you did it a couple days a week, like maybe days you have off from work or something like that. So just something to think about. You can still get benefit. You don't have to do it. That's one of the things I love about it, is it's flexible.
It's flexible. Perfect. Well, Jill, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. And despite all our technical difficulties, we did it.
We did it. Yeah. We did it anyways.
Exactly. You do it. Sometimes it's messy, and that's okay. So, thank you so much, Jill, for joining me today on this episode of What Has Changed Your Life. I hope everyone has a fantastic Sunday. If you like this video, want to share the information, like, share, follow, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day, everybody. Happy Sunday.